This is the Creative Endeavour podcast, the podcast bringing you inspiring stories from creative professionals from around the world. It's real conversations with real artists. And I'm Andrew Tischler, and it is such a pleasure to have your company in the studio once again. Now, in this episode, I'm talking to Mark Maggiori. It's actually the second time that Mark has appeared on the podcast. And since our last conversation, you might have caught this as well, he's had an epic sell-out show with Legacy Gallery and an auction associated with that show. Were you following on Instagram like I was? I was watching the outcome of this spectacular exhibition that would have taken so long to put together, but it was amazing to see the response that he got to his brand new body of work. It sold out, and for record prices as well. In fact, I'm sure he holds a record. I've never seen anybody do it quite the way Mark has done it, and I am so inspired by the level that he has achieved so far. And I'm sure he's just getting started. Now, Mark's work, if you're not familiar, is epic cowboy and Western paintings of the United States landscape, featuring amazing, awe-inspiring skies, glowing hues bursting off the desert landscape. It's something to behold. Now, Mark has taken the tradition of Western-themed paintings and he's created something totally new, putting his unique spin on the genre. I'm a huge fan of his work, and if you're not already following him, I'm sure you will be too. Check him out on Instagram and on his website. I'll include links in the show notes that go along with this podcast. Now, I wanted to ask Mark all about what led up to this show, how he felt after this amazing result, and even getting into what he defines success is for an artist, for himself, and what he's got left to explore within his career now that he's reached this amazing height. And a shout out and a special thank you to all of my online academy students who got their questions in early. You see, they helped me interview Mark here for this podcast, and they knew well ahead of time that I was going to be interviewing Mark for this show. So if you want to be part of that for future episodes of the Creative Endeavour, then check out my online academy. You'll find a link on my website at andrewtischler.com. And of course, they did not disappoint. I got some great questions in regarding his technical approach to painting. I'm so excited to bring you this podcast with Mark Maggiori. So without further ado, here he is in the Creative Endeavour. So many things that I want to dive into, but first I just want to say welcome back to the podcast. It's an absolute pleasure to have your company again, and just thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. It's good timing because I just finished a painting like 3 days ago, and I'm kind of, taking a few days in between always, like to kind of like regroup, know what's up.
Brilliant.
So doing other things.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I'm good.
Awesome. Well, I've got not only some questions that I'm dying to ask you, but I also have some of my online academy students who have hit me up, and I let them know in advance that, hey, look, I'm going to be interviewing Mark again. We're going to be going here round two. Why don't you give me some questions that you would like to ask Mark, some of the things about his work, his past, how he got started, and some of the latest developments. So I'll just be asking these kind of at random as we go, but there are some fantastic questions that have come through, and I'm thinking, oh man, that was a really good question. I'm really excited to put some of these to you. But the thing that I'm really interested in, and look, I think we all saw it. It was just such an amazing moment watching some of those posts that you were making on Instagram from the show that you had in recent months. And that must have broken some sort of record. But I was just there as I was looking at these posts, watching these sales come through, looking at how amazing the paintings were, just kind of cheering, just going, yes, that was just so inspiring. I really wanted to know, like, can you describe that moment to me of that show and what that felt like being there? You know, the culmination of all this hard work, and then you're there at opening night. You know, watching you in some of those videos, it was just like you could see it almost wash over you in a way that it was like it was just kind of sinking in, and this excitement was then sort of building. Describe that moment for me.
Well, so it's I mean, you know, you're a painter as well. You know the
Yeah.
feeling of this path that it comes from, like the building of an image, an idea, and then putting on canvas, and then put everything you got to make a great image, and then knowing it's going to a show, so it's going to be seen by so many people, and they're going to see your work in the flesh. So there's all those variables that are get in the mix where you put everything you have to make sure you done your best, and then comes a time where painting gets in the frame, and then you bring it to the gallery, and then it's not in your hands anymore. You've done everything you could, and it's in the end of of a higher power.
Mm.
And it's the most stressful because you don't have a control of that.
Right.
Everything else, it's under your control, and it's about it's just up to you to make it the best you can, but then after that you don't know. So it's random and it's stressful. So yeah, I think from the time a few days before the show, the anxiety was kind of building for me. I was like wondering if it's gonna sell. And I had not sold real paintings in about 2 years at that moment, because I was kind of like working, and I voluntarily dried the market to make sure nobody was getting anything, and buyers or collectors will be pretty hungry for the show. And so that we even were questioning with my gallery stuff of price point. And it was like, well, it's difficult because you are kind of famous, people knows you, people want your work, but then your last paintings didn't sell for that amount. So it's like we have to find an in between that makes sense for nowadays and your status, but also for buyers to bought you like 2 years ago, not being like a huge gap of like, oh, the price have raised. So we kind of priced everything, I would say, kind of at the really the below limit where I was like feeling comfortable with it. And but I was still stressed about it. Like the morning, I remember the morning of the day, I was like, are we sure like putting those estimates on the auction? Is it too much? I was like, so I was concerned somehow, like if it was gonna. And then the whole show happened, and then the sales, like first painting goes for auction, because like 3 or 4 times above the estimate, and then all like
Wow.
that, all the way to like all. And it was just keeps on going, and I couldn't even freaking believe it. But as soon as it gets in it, it's I don't know, it reminds me of like I love soccer, and it's like it'll be like a big game, and it's like the final, and you're so stressed, and then all of a sudden your team put 1 goal, 2 goal, 3 goals, and you're like, wow, it's just getting better and better, and the victory is here, and you're like thriving through it, and this like moment of bliss where everything is just flowing so well. So yeah, but that was it. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable.
Fantastic, man. It's interesting that to hear. So it wasn't a result that you were expecting. You were kind of nervous going into it.
Not at all, man. I mean, again, I had made my little calculation. There was a lot of stake because we hadn't been selling paintings for a long time, and of course, when you put all your life in that, you kind of hope that you're gonna get some kind of return, because we gotta keep going. And so yeah, of course, I was very anxious, and then all those record broken, it just was crazy.
And so with the work itself, like your paintings are stunning, man. They're really beautiful. And the work itself, what were some of the things that you were exploring, some of the stuff that you were trying to kind of feel your way around? Because, putting together a show, a body of work, that's a huge undertaking. Obviously you've got a subject and a style that you're into and you're eating up with. But was there something that you were trying to push a bit further, explore a bit more in your work?
Yeah, it's so I feel like I was when I started the paint Western, I was really focused on the figures, and the background was the background, and literally the background, like behind the figure. And of course, as my career, developed, and I was, painting more and more subjects, even changing the subject, because I started with cowboys, and then I switched, not a switch, but I slowly got into Native Americans because I was living in Taos, and it felt natural. But then living actually in New Mexico, and being inside that subject all day and feeling the importance of the elements, I slowly wanted to maybe diminish the size of my figures and put more emphasis on the background, and the background becoming more of a foreground somehow.
Mm.
So it all kind of get to the peak on that painting I did with this very small subject, Native American, and then the cloud was huge, and we had a really good I had a really good reaction on that when I posted on my Instagram. I remember thousands of comments, because it was different all of a sudden. And so at the show, for me, that was kind of like the pinnacle of the show. And so yeah, I'm very excited about that direction, because taking it from there, I'm probably gonna keep exploring and that way, landscapes, and maybe, yeah, reducing a little bit the size of the figures, not all the time, but it's interesting. That's a nice little route that I'm really enjoying exploring.
Brilliant. Brilliant. It's awesome to hear how sort of doorways open up and opportunities present themselves as you're developing the work. You're like, oh, that looks cool. Let's go over here and explore that direction.
Exactly. I mean, it,
Yeah.
it is what it is. We kind of follow our inspirations, and things have to make sense for what you do. Sometimes people ask you, you're gonna paint other things, and you're like, sure, I'm inspired by a lot of things, but then does it make sense to paint it? Like, how do I feel painting it? Is it good for me? Is it something that, and I've kind of learned to just accept, the things that I'm good at, and that's what I keep doing. And obviously I'm good at doing this, so I'm enjoying doing it. So why absolutely try to do something else when there's so much more I could do in that style, in that genre, because it's obviously very inspiring for me. So
Yeah. That's so cool, man, to hear because I mean, you can tell that you're loving what you're doing. That's awesome. And look, I've got a question here from Lori, and she wants to know, and just in regards to this show specifically, how long did it take you to get paintings ready for your recent show at Legacy Gallery? And did he continue to generate income while he was saving paintings for the show?
mhm. Yeah. So I think we had this conversation on the previous podcast, but I have a very strong print market.
Hmm.
Uh, so I'm doing those print sale twice a year. Try to keep it something special and very exciting for the fans and collectors. And so yeah, luckily this is an important source of income. And so I'm able, because of the prints, to decide to not, I could not paint for a year if I want, uh,
Hmm.
because that sustains it. It might not be like that forever, and I'm always like, very aware of all that. But so far, the market is good, and so I keep doing it. A lot of people keep asking for it. That's also the thing. I'm trying to be very aware of the audience, and what people, and I'm keep constantly gaining followers, and the followers are new buyers, because somebody who just started following me 2 months ago, they didn't do the sale of December, so they want print now. So that's why the sale of June is cool, and then they can have one, and
Mm.
so on. So yeah, this is cool, and it's great to not have to rely just on paintings. So I worked on the gallery show for about 2 years and a half, and I was selling little sketches sometimes, and I might have done like one commission, but most of it was I was saving each painting for the show. So yeah, it is it can be challenging, but I was lucky to have the print market to help me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you've got to also be a little bit business minded about it too, don't you? I mean, to keep everything going, and because it's a really I mean, it's a fast-paced world now. There's so much stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff kind of vying for our attention as artists. But in order to keep the thing going, I found with my own business that you've got to have those multiple revenue streams. That if I was just a painter selling paintings, that is sometimes it's kind of like putting all your eggs in one basket, right? It's, can be a bit difficult.
Yeah, it depends also of your needs. And if you're a single guy and you're young and you just live in an apartment and you don't need much to live and be happy, then it's fine. You can do that. But we're getting older. I'm 45 and I have three daughters and wife and
Yeah.
family and all kinds of things. So of course you have to generate income and try to make it big somehow, that everybody is happy and everything's good. So I keep pushing, it just makes me happy to provide for the family and all that's enough of an incentive to kind of like get you awake in the morning and go for it.
For sure, for sure. That didn't really click into place for me until I had my son. And then I'm like, oh, it's go time.
And that's exactly, I mean,
Yeah.
you want to give them everything you can, like that's
Yeah.
just so it is. Yeah, it's human
Yeah.
nature.
It is, man. It is. Um, let's focus for a little bit on the work. I've got loads of technical questions that have come through. First, I want to ask you about your source material. And we did speak a little bit about that. And I've heard other podcasts with you where you've spoken about how you get your images here. But I just, for the sake of this podcast, I'd really love to hear some more about that. I got a question here from Trey. He says, how does he maintain a consistency in reference and ideas? And how do you, Mark, define what idea and or reference is better than something else? Like when you find that golden moment, how do you know that, aha, that's it? So what are some of those things that you're looking for at some of those visual cues? And just on a just to add on to that, you have quite a process for getting the stuff. It's not just a matter of taking a snap, I know, and oh, I'm going to paint that one. There's a lot that goes into actually capturing that idea first. I'd love to hear more about that.
Hmm. Yeah, so I mean, obviously the process of getting references is for me the most important and most interesting part, because it's human experiences, and I think that's what kind of like feed your soul, and it all has to go from there. Um, so yeah, I really do like to create those moments, by going out there, meeting people, and setting up photo shoots. Um, it's not always easy to do it because we're super busy, and it takes a lot. Recently, I also have lots of back problems, so I can't be as much as rock and roll as I used to be. Jumping there and jumping there. But hopefully it'll get better. But anyway, so it's one thing to like create that, and then when you come back with all your material, you've been like so inspired and kind of like electrified by this moment or those days or whatever you've done with models. You go back to your computer, start looking at things. There is this magic that you've been capturing somehow somewhere, and I know when I shoot, I'm always super like, so sometimes I see things during the photo shoot when I'm like, oh, this was great. But sometimes even better is like there's been like a light effect or something that happened as you were shooting that you were not maybe aware of, that ray of light that hit the face, the thing, and the horse, the reflection on the, and this you see it when you see your photos, and you're like, wow, okay, this is it. The crazy part is that when I do a photo shoot for maybe I shoot for a whole day or an afternoon, you come back with, sometimes more than 1,000 pictures, and you go through it, you're going to have maybe 2 or 3 paintings from that, like 3 or 4 major. That's it.
Yeah.
I only had one photo shoot one in my life where I had maybe 10 paintings out of it, because it was like a whole day, different outfit, different location. It was a huge day. So I had a lot of materials from that. But it could be frustrating because you're like, oh, I spent all this time and money to like go there and shoot stuff, and but it doesn't matter because that's, those paintings are enough. And if it's three major piece, then that's enough. Then you do another photo shoot and go somewhere else. So I really do enjoy that part of the process. And I don't know if there was more to that question.
No, that really sums it up. I mean, it's just the amount of effort though that you go to is pretty extraordinary. It's because it sounds a lot like you're composing also, outside. You do have a certain intention, but you're also leaving the door open for the surprise to happen for that moment. Yeah.
100%. I think that is so important. And maybe we'll talk about AI after that. And maybe there's question about that or something, that because it's so
Um,
present right now and there's so
man.
much to talk about. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I believe that there is still that thing um, that is possible with this process of work that is not, that AI doesn't give yet. This
Mhm.
is the magic of things that happen through human connection.
Yeah.
And I think the connection to an experience that
Yes.
one person did, like me going out there, meeting this cowboy, shooting him, his story, his land, going back, painting it, people seeing the painting, they see the guy, he's a real guy, he lives there. All this connection, the human soul,
Mm.
people feel that. And
Hmm.
that's called emotion. And that's what art is about.
Hmm.
It's not just about big impressive stuff, or it's impressive, oh wow, it's great what AI can create, it's impressive, you don't have to go anywhere anymore, you can get everything on your computer.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're gonna miss the component, which is the human connection, and we are still humans, what I mean?
I
So
love
this is
that.
it.
Yeah.
What I mean? Like this,
Yeah.
that's it. And of
Yeah.
course, it's a great tool. I mean, I'm changing subject. I don't want to change subject.
No, 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 no. I no that let's go there. Let's
Important to talk about this, because in the
yeah.
process of creation, and it's great, and but people need to understand that it's not enough. It's not enough. It needs
Yeah.
to remain a tool. And
Hmm.
I think already people are realizing it. And um, if you're missing the human experience, something's not gonna connect, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And it's the same for movies. There's movies when they put the millions of new effects nonstop, and it's like pew, 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 and,
Yeah.
and those movies, you watch them like, wow, it took so much. And then you're like, do you think you remember those movies after? No. And then
No.
you can have two-person sitting on a bench talking about love, and you cry, and you're gonna remember this movie for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And it was nothing. It was just two-person talking.
Yeah.
Versus $1 billion movies with all the new effects in the trend that are like incredible. And I think for art, it's exactly the same. So,
Yeah.
be reassured, painters out there.
That's no, it's wonderful to hear.
Your heart,
Yeah.
you're gonna remain standing.
Because I mean, let's face it, man, there's a lot of people out there that are losing their minds. There's a lot of people that are really excited about it. There's people that are going, well, I'm going to use AI to compose my paintings now, or now I'm going to go off in this direction. And I was first of all like really curious about it personally, and then I was thinking, okay, well, yeah, maybe I can see there's some danger here, even just from a business standpoint. I can see this is going to displace a lot of artists, but there's a certain aspect to it that, as you were saying there, you can't delegate that to a machine. You can't delegate that connection that you have to subject to a machine. I've said to my students that I believe art is three things mainly. You're providing a product, you create a thing, right? You provide a service with your thing. You can do something, you can decorate a space, you can, you can use your artistic skills to do stuff. And then, but the third part is the process. Now, AI might have you whipped on two of those things. It can create a product, right? And it can create a service. Cool. Well, let it have that. But the last thing that it can't do is the process of you being engaged and connecting. It's like trying to get someone else to eat your lunch for you. It's absolutely pointless.
Exactly. And I've experienced it personally. So that's why I'm referring to it. It's like
Mm,
I've seen artists that are already on it, that I've been even communicating with, that are making images on AI, and they're really good at it. You see the image, first glance, if you think it's a painting, you're like, what the this is insane. And then you're like, oh, it's AI generated. Right away, my interest dropped like 70%.
Yeah.
And then I look at the image and nothing is happening in
Mm.
my heart, in my belly, in my soul. Nothing is happening. It's a great image. Next one.
Mm.
Because if I knew that this image was painted by a guy in his studio, that the woman on the painting or whatever was his muse or wife, and all of a sudden I see the image in a total different light, and I would probably connect with it more.
Yeah.
But people need to understand that is that what touches us is the work of the artist. It's just, all those stories. Let's give an example with soccer again. Let's say now they're gonna do players that are like robots, and they can put the ball in the goal every time. Put them on, a team can buy this player, and he's
Yeah.
with you. He has legs, and he can put the ball in, so you win every time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then there's no more game. Nobody gives. You want to see the human struggling to put the ball in the goal. That's what the
Yeah.
whole game is about. If there is a solution, and who cares? And so, I get it. Like I saw this new Photoshop thing. You can like add up stuff to your background. Cool. I'm gonna spend less time creating that on my own. If I wanted more of that mountain there, I can Photoshop can create it for you. That's a good tool. Awesome. I want to change maybe this. Great, but that's not enough. That's the
Yeah.
tool. Then you need to put your heart to it and make it happen. Because I'm kind of, I don't know. I'm not too, I think AI is more scary for other things in other fields, where like, I feel like, it's getting a beast. It's becoming a pretty incredible beast for other things. Like how are we going to, think, and our kids, how, we're going to keep them, to learn how to think from themselves, how to write for themselves. If they can have everything provided by AI, what are the brains gonna become? Like a freaking like a mushy marshmallow,
Yeah.
that's the danger of that. Is that it keeps making humans weak. And as a species, we can't become weak because then we're gonna become woolly. This movie when they're all in,
Oh man, I was just thinking that as you said that. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
and we gotta
Yeah.
fight because if we let it go and use this, and it's the same for painters. If you're a painter, you're gonna use AI, then you're gonna stop painting, then you're not gonna know how to paint anymore. And then too bad for you. What are you gonna
Yeah.
do? Just be on your computer, hunchback like that.
Yeah. Oh, man, exactly. Exactly. I couldn't agree more. So what would you say to some artists out there if they were young, starting artists? I mean, let's say you started today, and so AI comes onto the scene. You can see you can get a little bit of an edge, do something. Do you think you could resist that temptation to just go, well, because there's something to it. Like there's a convenience to it, but I personally I like putting in the work. I like doing the boring thumbnails and all that
The
stuff.
reward as a
Yeah.
personal, are you gonna brag that you have this beautiful image you created on AI? What about it? Like you had great prompt. That was your skill. Like put some cool prompt. It's just nothing. So it's like, okay, cool. But if everybody can do it, there is nothing to it.
Yeah.
What's great is to see when somebody, you're in a live drawing class and you see all the students in this model and you see how people try to get this face right, and all of a sudden this guy is beautiful what he's doing. So it's emotional.
Yeah.
There's no point to like, I create a new drawing with AI. Cool. Or what's the point?
Yeah.
And I'm as well like, like cutting potatoes or do whatever.
But speaking of prompts, though, Mark, I guarantee you're now a prompt on AI. I guarantee. Give me cowboy painting in the style of Maggiori.
What you can do is that you can do art by. When you do art by
Hmm.
and you put a name on an artist, then you know if he knows it or not. So he knows some artists very well, some he doesn't. Mark Maggiori doesn't. When you do art by Mark Maggiori, it's weird. So
Okay.
if you do art by Joaquin Sorolla, he does like a Sorolla thing, like for
Wow.
sure, because he
Yeah.
knows it. But Mark Maggiori doesn't yet. Cool for me.
I do. I
But
do
again, I
think
don't care. People want to generate Mark Maggiori's painting. Cool. It's just like whatever.
you're doing your own thing. Yeah. Yeah. It's yeah. It's a fascinating thing, man. I think we're seeing a real changing world on all fronts to do with AI. But I think what's going to happen is there will be a knee-jerk reaction, and there's a few that are waking up to it. I think it's going to get more and more people because people are going to start to realize. I mean, back to your analogy of robots playing soccer, they'll be like, "This sucks. This sucks." Let's go back to that park bench with the two lovers talking. Let's actually feel something here. Let's connect. Yeah. So let's talk. I mean, about image creation here, about putting the painting together. Because I've got two questions here. I'm actually really interested to know this as well. You've got you've got a beautifully luminous quality in the paintings themselves. And so, when I'm teaching, one thing that I talk about continually is like, okay, look, hold back with your tone, hold back with your saturation. Then when you put it in there, you create this moment and you get this feeling like the color and the lights exploding off the painting. But when I look at your work, the whole thing just feels like it's bursting with life and light and energy. So I got a question here from Barbara, and she wanted to know, how do you get the glow in the painting?
Hmm. Hmm. That's a good question, and it's difficult to answer. I always refer to my grandma, and she's Italian, and she was making the best pasta in the world. And how many times did we ask her, "Can you write the recipe so we can try to make it at home?" And she's like, ci metto un po' di questo qua, and you don't never get the recipe because she doesn't know how she does it. And I kind of think it's the same for me with painting. I don't know how I do it. I just do it. And
Mm,
of course, I apply some rules that are like super, classic, and I've learned over the years, about, kind of like, the difference of the tones, and bouncing warm and cold constantly, and also the ratio of light and dark in an image, the kind of like trying to apply to like the 1/3 all the time, so
yeah.
it's either 1/3 light or 1/3 dark, but it kind of like just playing with that all the time. And it's again something that is very sensitive, um like I say, I'm always working small, and I do my images first. I work on Photoshop, I play it, compose the stuff, so I make sure like it really appeals to my eye. And I also make sure that every time I paint the subject, I sketch it before, so I know that the lights and shadows are playing well on the subject. And that's fascinating because when you look at three pose, if somebody moves on a horse and goes like this, and you do one, two, three pictures,
Mhm.
the light's completely different in each of them, even if it was like the same moment. And one of them is going to be great, and maybe the one right after is not great. But you have to test that by sketching it to kind of look at it instead of just jumping in it. Oh, a cool photo, I'm going to paint it. Yeah, but maybe there's a better one where the light reflects better. And so yeah, that's the thing. I'm always, yeah, make sure that the light has a path through the painting, and it's bouncing at different places, and it's so yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, looking at some of these images, they're so striking. And hearing you talk about the relationship of your tones, your dark to light. So is that a cinematic thing? Would that be something that came from your film days that you're like, yeah, because the color relationships as well in your paintings are extraordinary. I see such strong use of complementary opposites in a lot of your paintings where you're balancing these effects. So how much of that, yeah, came from that cinematic background, and then you've kind of taken it and run with it, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I think by storyboarding a lot, I did a lot of storyboarding, and always try to make sure everything is very simple and at the right place, and that is always like dark shadows, dark shadows, dark shadows, dark shadows all the time. And yeah, the I play a lot with some basic color rules, but I think everybody kind of does that, but maybe not. I don't know. It's just all the impressionist rules. I play with it mostly at the end of the process, when the painting is pretty much finished. I do a lot alla prima, but sometimes I do a second coat. And at the end, just an example, if there's bushes in the front, and some of the bushes, like, you think my last painting, there is like just a little bit of light that was hitting the top of the bushes on the left part, but all the right part was dark. So it's the shadows, it's like golden hour. So everything is in the shade. Usually it's in the purples, bluish, purplish. But at the end, when the thing is kind of, good at my eye, then I play with purples and I create like a bunch of completely like crazy purples.
Hmm.
And I just go poop, 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 three little thing. And then I change and I make more like magenta, purplish, and boom, boom, two or three there to kind of like make those shadows vibrate like. And this is just impressionism, that's like the basic rules of impressionism. But you don't see that when you see my paintings on Instagram because they're small. So that's the thing you see when you see them in person, and you're like, oh, you put all this. But when you go far, it works. It just makes it vibrant. Because I always like to change the color in the same, like, say that this bush is lit where the light hits. I'm not gonna make like a bright color like white and yellow and just make all my highlights. I make like 20 different type of highlights. I mix the yellow and then put a
Fantastic.
little pink in it, ta, 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 and then a little bit of like orange in it, blah, blah, blah. And so it's just like to keep like always having things vibrating.
Mm.
I got this idea even from painting outside, but also on working with Photoshop. And I remember very young, like, even when we were in art school and we were Photoshop stuff, and you zoom in it and you want to click a color, every time you click, it's different. If you like zoom in like a piece of grass, you click on it, you get 30 greens that are showing up. And so I would like
Mm.
kind of use this when I paint, and never having the same color. And sometimes people are like, oh, when you paint that rock, did you use magenta, crimson, and this and that? I'm like, I don't know, man. I have, I try to have a limited palette of colors. So I have maybe, one red, I have a crimson, I use a crimson, a red, and then a ultramarine. And I just play with mixing things differently,
Yeah.
and to never have the same colors for things. It's every time it's different. Everything is different. If you use green, it's never going to be the same green all the way. Maybe I do a first wash of green,
Mm.
and I start like making it different. So I don't know if that answers.
No, no, that does answer it. It's interesting to hear how much goes into it. I mean, and isn't it sad? I mean, you spend so much time on a painting and then you're posting it to Instagram. Now, of course, you got the original. You can show it in a gallery and have an exhibition, or it's a commission for somebody, so it will be enjoyed. But unfortunately, all I've been able to see of your work is on this little tiny screen. And then, on the internet, like I pulled up your website here, and so it's great to hear what goes into it because when I'm creating a painting and then photograph it, it reduces down. I'm like, no, there's so much more that went into that. There's a dimension there when you're actually standing in front of the original that most will just never get to appreciate, and I find it kind of sad.
I know, but those paintings exist, and hopefully, they have, this museum in Arizona was asking me that maybe one day we do a kind of already like a retrospective and talk to different buyers that bought painting over the last 8 years, and maybe they would give painting for a show, and maybe we do a show that is not painting to buy, but it's just painting to see. And
Brilliant.
it'd be cool, that kind of initiative, so people can actually come and see it. That'd be cool.
Let me know when that's happening. I'd love to see that. Um, hey, so I've got a question here from Andrew Nealand, and so we were talking a little bit about color there, and he wanted to know, okay, what are your must-haves? Your subjects, the lighting scenarios are varied from like middle of the day on some of them, some nocturnes. You've got some that are, that golden hour that are just so striking. But do you have any, well, as you're changing up your painting, your subject? Are you and you're changing up your palette? Do you have anything that's like, not every painting's got this, that, or the other? What are your go-to must-haves? What's your favorite tube of oil paint?
Colors.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah, like I said, I'm Just mostly I have this simple range of color because again, I always like to tell people that when you print a picture on a color printer, he only has three colors.
Yeah.
And he's able to master the print. So it's all about mixing the color the right way in order to get. So you don't need like when I'm so sorry, it keeps like I don't know how to desynchronize this thing with my computer. It's the computer rings.
Oh,
But yeah,
okay.
so I'm trying to not having when I see people that have like 20 colors on their palette, I don't know how they do it because I would get lost. So I prefer to keep it very simple. And like I say, sometimes at the end, even I go to the store, like if I was painting those clouds and there was a bunch of interesting oranges on the references and I felt like I was missing something to make it even more vibrant. So I went to the store and I kind of like bought three different oranges and I came back and my clouds were almost finished, but I went on the highlights and just kind of like met those little nuances with different oranges. So yeah, I'm just like simple colors, the basics. There's a purple that I love that I always put in my palette from the store Bleak in the US. I don't, and it's called violet gray, and it's super. It's I don't know. I've tried every brands of this kind of like purple violet thing. Uh, but Bleaks has the best. Like it's so saturated.
Mm.
And so I bought, I always buy them by pack of 10 and I always have it. Like so no matter what the color of the day, if I do it, like you say, I seen at noon or I seen at night, or there's always gonna be this purple in it because it works all the time. Like if it's in a bright day, it works very well with greens. If it's a nocturne, it can actually work too, even on like the sky, you could put a little. So it's a great color to have.
Fantastic. Who makes that? Sorry?
Bleak.
Blick. Oh, okay. Violet gray. Blick. All right. It just sold out.
I was in my studio, I will show you, but I'm in the living room.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. That's that's really that's really interesting, man. It's so when you're painting you're putting your paintings together, this is just something that I'd love to know because your style's so slick and like your edges are really clean. They're just yeah. I don't mean to gush too much here, man, but I'm a big fan. But I'm looking at this and I'm trying to think about this as a bit of a detective looking throughout the piece, going, is he using synthetics or bristles or both? So let me ask you about your brushes that you're using to actually apply the paint. Let's get a little bit in the nitty gritty and the technical here. What are some of your go-to favorites? I imagine you're using a range though, right?
Yeah, I have very basic. I work with rosemary brushes and I use the evergreens. And they're coming up with a set for me. And it's been in the pipe for a long time. I think it's gonna release soon. I don't know what's happening with that, but I have to talk with them. But yeah, I'm using three sizes of the evergreen all the time, the 0, 2, and 4. Um, and I have this brush that from Blake as well, that is like a $1 brush or $2. They're super cheap.
Mm.
They call script something, I forget the name. And they're yes, scholars. I forgot, man. I'm the worst with names. But yeah, the point is really good because it's really pointy and it's long enough. And I'm buy them by hundreds, and they last me a day, not more. So I
Yeah,
throw them away all the time,
yeah.
but they're pretty cheap. And so we've tried to recreate those with rosemary for my set, and I did a really good job at it. So in the set, there's going to be a similar brush that we're calling the Maggiori, and it's really, really cool. So
Awesome.
yeah, but so I pretty much work with those three. And when I do my clouds, I use a bristle uh, with those hair that are now forbidden here in America. So that sucks because they don't ship them here anymore.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't know why I think it's the hair they're using or some so. Um, they can ship in Europe, and then you have to bring them back in your luggage, or
Yeah.
have a friend of yours sending them. But I think they can ship them here. That's what I understood. Um, so yeah, I have a bunch of those, but those last for a long time because I only use them for when I do clouds. And sometimes at the beginning, but more and more now, I just do everything with my brush as I go. I just blend as I go, and yeah. But I don't have many brushes. I'm not the guy with like, and they're all the same. All my brushes are the same. I buy a box of hundreds, and that's all I use. And my
Mm.
brushes are dying pretty quick. Like I'm usually, like I say, even a rosemary brush, they last me like 2 days, one day, one brush, one session of
Wow.
like 7 hours, and then I kind of clean it, and in the morning I try it again. I'm like, it's not as good, so I take a new one. And because the shape's better,
Yeah.
so maybe
Yeah.
I'm too rough with it. I don't.
It sounds like you're beating the crap out of your brushes, man.
Because I mix colors non-stop. I spend so
Yeah.
much time mixing that they're always like so I think they're just getting like a little curly, and it's not good.
Yeah. There's nothing like a fresh brush though. That's true. I'm excited.
It's the best. It's the best. They
Yeah.
need to be new, and you do something super important.
Hmm.
And it's gonna be like that one tail. You have to have all the hair perfect. You can't do that with a brush that was two days old. For me, it needs to be new and nice. So
Yeah. It's exciting to hear about your brush set coming out. I'd love to check that out. I got to ask you, I'm cringing, and I know other people listening to this are cringing already because they're like, Tish, don't ask him. Don't ask him. Have you ever used the Tish dagger before?
what is that?
Dude, it's my brush from Rosemary and Co.
No, I haven't.
I gotta have him send you one because that's a cool brush. That's a cool brush, and you could think of me while you're painting clouds. You'd be like, "Oh yeah, this is actually a badass brush. It's one of my favorites." And like you having that back and forth process with them. We had a long drawn out back and forth process of prototypes, and they'd ship me something. It takes a while being down here in New Zealand, getting things back and forth, but we ended up getting this thing that's like it was just such a nice brush to use in the end, and I'm just like, dang, this is my favorite. The small ones didn't work as well, but there's like this middle range.
They're able to reproduce it over and over.
Oh yeah, yeah. But this is the thing that I found with Rosemary and Co. Like I'm sure you found as well, is that that when you pick up that brush, the consistency across the range, you know what it's going to do, and their quality is just phenomenal.
It's incredible. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. I agree.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess I gotta get it.
Well, oh, we'll hook you up, man. We'll hook you up. Let me ask you a little bit about just kind of career because I get this question all the time, and Esteban has asked this, and the question is, if somebody's not studying arts in university, what path should they follow? There's so many options that are open to people nowadays, especially youngsters kind of coming up and they want to be full-time artists. But I still find that there's this kind of locked in mentality where it's almost like this trajectory that people have had in their minds from 50 years ago. It's like I'm going to go da 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 and then success. But what advice would you give to people that were, just starting out their career? Should they go to art school? Should they study, or should they kind of forge their own path?
Well, yeah, especially nowadays when there is so many possibilities to call yourself artist. Um, I think the more you know, the better you're gonna be.
Mm,
And it's like, if you want to become a chiropractor, you can decide to do the 2 months program that's going to teach you how to crack somebody, and then you put your plate in your chiropractor. Or you can go to medicine study for university, do 3 years there, learn everything about human body, and then after 5 7 years, you call yourself chiropractor. Imagine the difference of results for the client if you are being manipulated by somebody that did the 2 months program, or somebody that studied for 7 years and knows everything about human bodies and science and shit. It's
mm,
different. So it's exactly the same for an artist. You have to learn everything you can to widen your range of knowledge in order to perform and do something that might be different. Because the key for career as an artist is to find something that speaks to you, but also different than what everybody does. And the more you're gonna swallow knowledge and different artists and learning everything, the better you're gonna become. And so again, like we were talking about AI earlier on, and that's insane danger, because you're like, if you're young and you can, like you said, create a reference with AI, but then if you don't know anything under that, you don't have a structure. It's like building the roof of a house without foundation. It's not gonna hold. And so I think every young artist should take this journey as in the hard path. Like the harder the path you make for yourself, the better outcome you're gonna have. And I know it's very difficult to think like that when you're 18 or 19 and it's time to get training. But it is a journey. Like I'm 45 and I started to make some good images like 8 years ago. You know what I mean? Like before that, I did a lot of things, but to me, when I look back, I was still in training. There was references in what I was doing. You could see, oh, this looks like that. This like is influenced by this. It was still waiting on me. And then slowly, you brush it off. And then at some point in your career, you become you. And that takes a long time. And you can't expect, I know we're in a society where everything needs to be right away. It's like Amazon type of thinking. Oh, I want this. No, 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 no. I can't wait. Yeah, you can't wait, but you have to wait, and you have to be patient. You have to take the time to learn and work hard to get there, because it's a very hard career to choose. And if my daughter comes to me and say, I want to be an artist, I'd be like, all right, well, you can try. We can give you all the chances you can, but there's no guarantee. It's not like, I want to become a doctor. Okay, well, you can become a doctor. You do this and this and that. You study for 10 years and then you can be a doctor. Artist, you don't know. It's very abstract, as you know. And what does it mean? People are gonna buy your stuff, that you're gonna make a living out of it. We have no idea about that. So you can become a great artist, that's one thing, but then the career is different, because career means, that you can make a living out of it, and that's another story.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many different paths to this as well. And I see, there's also the range and the amount of success really does depend on how you're showing up and what you're putting into it, right? We can see so many different examples. You put in a little, you get a little, if anything, out. You put in a lot and you're just obsessed and you're on all the time. You almost can't switch off. It seems like that's where the rewards exist. I've been asked by a few people, personally, just from people that thought it was an easy path. And like you're saying, to your point, if your daughter comes to you, you know, it's I've imagined similar conversations with my son years to come. I hope he does become an artist though, because I just
Or not, he might do the
I
opposite, because he sees you
yeah,
struggle and he wants a different life. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
they never know what they're gonna take from us.
Exactly, exactly. No, but he might come to me saying, "No, I've seen what you've gone through. That would suck. I'm not doing that."
I know exactly. That's what
Yeah,
I'm saying. It's like
yeah,
we're always like thinking of like, what do we do? Blah blah blah. Maybe they don't want to do that,
yeah.
and but maybe they will. Maybe it's gonna be stronger than them.
So, look, you've reached this point, Mark, and it's extraordinary. And so I would really love to know, and somebody has asked this as well from the academy. What does a typical day look like for you? Because I mean, from the outside looking in, and I'm sorry if I'm projecting here, but it does look like you're dialed in, you're locked in. You seem obsessed about your art creation. But how does that typical day seem to flow for you on a typical day that you're painting? How many hours you putting in?
Hmm. Well, so during the day, I'm working, yeah, pretty much from like 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's like the time I'm working. But during the day, I take my lunch break, I cook my food, I take even a nap after lunch for 10, 15 minutes, power nap. Then at 3 p.m. I go pick up my daughter in school. That takes me like, 20 minutes, bring her back here, and I go back in the studio. And then yeah, when it's like time, my stomach usually regulate my day. It's like 6 p.m. I start feeling okay, it's time to think about dinner, blah blah. And or we go places, you know. So yeah, I'm kind of regimented like that. I wake up very early and do now I'm like doing long walks in the morning. I used to work out, but I slowed down now with my back problems. So I walk a lot. It's a good time to meditate and, you know, do my like 40 minutes walk here in the park. So yeah, and then get my daughter ready to school, and then take her to school. And then when I come back from bring her to school, it's time when I start working. Um, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. That's just a very important part of my days. I used to listen to music when I painted, but not anymore. It's been 4 or 5 years now that I'm listening to audiobooks, and I love that. Like really, like you know, I get into a book, and then I kind of like it's a hand in hand type of journey. You know, I'm painting, but then I want to listen what's happening. It's kind of like very, very interesting because you're so lonely when you paint that you kind of need something else. You know, it can't be just me.
Oh, that's yeah. That's so interesting. You've hit on a couple of really, really interesting points there. Let me ask you first though, what's on your reading list? What are some of your favorite titles at the moment?
Or right now.
Yeah, for your audiobooks.
Oh yeah, so I've been listening to Ken Follett's, like this author. Um, I've listened to so many of his books, and they're like epic books. And he has things that go by trilogy, or like, you know, they go by 3 or 4 books, and they're all like 40 hours listen. And it's epic stories. Like one is like starts in like the Viking time, and then the next book is the same family but 200 years later, you know, in like the beginning of the United Kingdom empire, blah blah. And it's like that kind of stuff. And right now I'm listening to a whole thing. Same, it was an epic book, but I'm on the third one, and it's happening in America, in Russia, and UK in the 60s. So, and everything is linked. So I learned also a lot about it because this guy is super like on point with history, and his stories are fictional, but they are linked with the real history. So I kind of love it because I learn also a lot. So I've been kind of obsessed with this guy now for about more than a year. Like during my whole show work, I've listened to all his books. Um, and yeah, I got a lot. I also really like CJ Box. I've listened to the Joe Pickett, you know, all that stuff, which is more like, it's very different. It's more like modern day Western stuff. Um, and you know, back in the days, I've listened to, you know, summary, like all the Larry Murtry books, and you know, the Lonesome Dove series and all that. I used to listen to a lot of Western stories, you know, that was, and then I kind of went around a lot, and I was needed other things, and so right now I'm on the Ken for that stuff. But yeah,
Right.
you know, and I listened to Gone with the Wind like recently, because I, you know, I've seen the movie when I was younger, and for some reason I don't know, I was like, oh, I'll be curious to listen to the actual, you know, book, and it's so great. Like I'm the same, I've learned a lot about, you know, American history and stuff, like the Civil War era, and it's pretty cool.
Fascinating. Yeah, it was interesting to hear you say that that art and painting and creating your work, it's a lonely thing. It is a really lonely road being an artist. You know, I find that I'm pretty much alone all day, except for that those beautiful moments that I have with my family throughout the day, where it's like again regulated by the stomach, right? Oh, it's lunchtime. I better sort that out, you know. But I really struggled with that in the beginning, man. Like just not seeing anybody, and it really messed with my head until I got to a maturity where I was just like, no, this is my path. I found personally I had to look at the benefits of that solitude. So it's really interesting, but it's like something had to click for me to go, yeah, okay, embrace it. Now walk that path.
Yeah, no, exactly. There is no other way around, you know, and it's for me. That's why I'm able now to take. I'm taking like 2 months off right now. We're going to France and Italy, and I'm not gonna paint for 2 months and see people and kind of like, you know, just be around, do things, whatever. But it's important because I'm not. It's gonna take a minute. I know at the beginning I have anxieties. Like yesterday afternoon, I spent the afternoon packing, thinking of the departure and all that, and I feel anxiety just not painting. And I'm like, it's been an hour. I'm doing this. Like, should I just go back to the studio? Maybe like check things out. I'm like, no, like you don't have any, just do this right now. It's fine. It's your own time. Enjoy that moment of. I was alone at home doing, little things, packing stuff, blah blah. But it's very difficult for me to surrender that, you don't have to paint every freaking minute of your life. It's not, it's just a very strange thing. Like, what is it that I'm trying to, is there a hole somewhere that I need to like fill up? And by working, I go through anxieties, and I'm a very stressed person because I'm like always like this, like super tense. And I think painting is a time like when I kind of forget things. I would have like a tummy ache, and then I start painting. I forget I have a tummy ache, and I don't have a tummy ache anymore because I'm painting. And it's kind of
Really?
it's a crazy thing, but yeah, I think it's just like this is the way I am. this I was put on that earth, maybe just do that.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is amazing how it kind of just getting really engaged and present in your creative process, you kind of drown things out. I'll start painting it at the start of the day, and then just at the end of the day, kind of go, where did the day go? What happened? You'll see the progress at the easel, but it's like the time just flies when you're in that zone, locked in.
I know,
Yeah.
and it's funny when we were living in Taos for 2 years. My wife she had an atelier in town that was linked with a store, and so she would go in the morning, and when we meet at the end of the day, she had done so many things, see so many people, had lunch with people, met this people, a whole thing, and me, nothing. I made some progress on the horse head. That's my day. I don't have much to talk about. So that's why you need to feed yourself with other things, books, the news, the thing to kind of like keep
Yeah.
it up, having stuff to talk about because you don't see anybody. So it's just like that's one of the things that people don't really think about when they're like, oh, painter's life, lucky. Yeah, I am, but it's also, yeah, there's a hard part to it. It's a long
Yeah.
solo journey. So yeah.
So, I'm really. It's quite interesting to hear about your forced downtime as a way to kind of almost reset, because that must have been, man. It must have been such a high coming from that exhibition that you've had. To now just go, wow. How do you reset after something like that? So it's great to hear that you're going to be doing a bit of traveling, spending some family time, seeing some people.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I was telling you I have back problems. And I have back problems for a long time. It's been 10 years, in and out. But recently, it's been two months. I've been through really like hardcore things, and I'm getting a little better now. But it started like literally a week after the show, and instead of being free and be like, I had planned a trip to New York with my brother and all, and in the plane to New York, it started to hit me, and then I spent the worst freaking time. I had to go get a shot, and I couldn't move, and it feels like all the stress that I was kind of somehow managing, even though it was inside of me, when the thing was finished, instead of feeling free and be happy, oh, cool, it's kind of like my whole body took it in the back and like, all right. And it's like, you did your last shot and then you die. And so it's just very
Wow.
strange because, yeah, it hit me so hard. And even though I was like trying to tell myself, maybe it's in your head, I'm like, it was it, my body was done. And I've been through so many hardcore phases for the past 2 months. And so yeah, I'm happy and I'll be able to sitting with you for an hour. Like I couldn't be there like that, like 3 weeks ago. I couldn't sit. I have to like constantly move and stuff. It's just so anyway, long story short, I think that going now to Europe, and I wish maybe I would have lived before, but I just did another painting this month because I really wanted to do this painting that was supposed to be in my show, but I didn't have time to do it. So I did it now. But now I'm ready to go. And I think this 2 month in Europe are going to be good for that, like, reset and being inspired with new ideas. Also, we're moving to Arizona after when we come back, we're leaving California and gonna live in Arizona. So I'm super excited about that because I'm gonna be close to all my Cowboys friends, and I'll be able to, go back to the subject a little more and set up a lot of cool, exciting things, and getting ready for my next show, because that's kind of what's up there. It's like thinking of the future already.
Brilliant. Where's the next show happening? When's that happening?
Well, so I'm challenging my gallery, and we're gonna do a tour. So I was in a rock band, so I had this. I'm like a handsy guy. I need to move, and I had the idea of making a tour, and so the idea would be to have New York, Chicago, Austin, Nashville, Denver, Phoenix. Do like every day, and then maybe 3 or 4 days apart from each evening, and we bring maybe 10 of the major work, and we pick a place, maybe we rent a place, or we work with a gallery or something, but mostly we renting a place, put up the show, people come, they see the artworks, people who are interested in buying, they can put their bids or their names if it's a draw or whatever, and then we pack everything, go in a bus, next town, and then we do that for a month. And so everybody across the country can see the work in the flesh.
Awesome.
um, and then at the end, either in LA or in Scottsdale where the gallery is, we do the actual final where we pick the names, we do the auction like we did here, but after a month of kind of like everywhere on the road where everybody's seen. So it's gonna build up this like momentum of excitement, and I think it, like you were exactly like you were saying before, the fact that people can't see the work is very frustrating. And at my show, even though a lot of people were flying in, and we had, I don't know how many people came, there's a lot of people, and so to think that we can do that, and people that are in New York or Chicago or whatever, they can see the painting, it's great, because we're gonna, at the end of the day, instead of 1,000 people seeing it, maybe it'll be like 10,000 people that saw the paintings. So it's cooler, and it'd be exciting. I kind of like to always bring stuff that I was experiencing in my band in my painting life. It's kind of cool. So yeah,
That's
that
awesome.
might be 2026.
Yeah. Your band, by the way, is awesome. I mean, looking at some of the music videos. I was talking to my team about it and saying, no, you got to check this stuff out. And it just so rocking, so professional, just so awesome. It's some really catchy tunes on there as well. I have no idea what you're singing because I don't speak French, but it was just yeah. You're a talented guy, man. You're a talented guy. Let me ask you, when you first started this, 10 years ago, did you have any idea that you would be where you are right now?
Zero, like zero, literally any idea.
Wow.
Yeah, because what happened is that I was in the band. I had a life in France. I was doing okay. I was directing music video, but something in me was not happy. Like there was another dream that I wanted to go after that was not fulfilled. And so yeah, when I turned 33, 34, that's when I came to America, um, with a dream of doing something else. And for some reason, instead of going up, everything went down. And so I went through divorce, and music video business was stopped the band, and yeah, it's starting to go down. And I really ended up, my wife and I, we were going through hard times, no money, we freaking, like, we moved back to our mom in Arizona. And so at this point it was like, what do I do to survive? It was not even like, how make a career. No, it's like, how do we find money to eat and pay the bill? So
Wow.
painting was my last resort, because I knew I had this skill in my toolbox that I could use. And when I found out the subject of the Cowboys, I decided to go at it, because something spoke to me that maybe I could do something. And I was looking around, and buying magazines and looking at art, Western art, and I felt like maybe there was something I could do different. So I just gave it a try, desperate because I didn't know what else to do. And I was like, whatever, I'm gonna just paint that because I that speaks to me and I love to paint. And I'm at a place in my life where there is nothing else I can do. So I'm just gonna do that. And I started this, and then slowly, starting selling this painting there and there, and it started bringing a little bit of money, and it was super exciting enough to be like, let's keep going. And slowly, and then Instagram started building up and blah blah, and then start piling up, and so yeah, like 8 years later, when I did this show last month, it's crazy to like think that it went from there to there. It's just incredible.
Hmm. Oh, it's an incredible level you've reached. And so you would then consider yourself successful, right? This is success.
Right now,
Yeah.
well, I guess.
How do you define success? How do you define that?
I think it's sorry, I'm staying for a second. My back.
Sure.
I think success is kind of it's a two-sided blade, because there is your personal success, and then there's a success that is going to make you survive in this world, and be part of this world at a certain level. And that really depends on your expectation from what you want from this world. And some people will be like, I have a piece of land and I live there, my family, that's my success. And maybe they don't make money, but they're happy, and that's key. That's
Yeah.
number one thing, and then you compare to somebody who has a freaking mansion up there on the hills, and has 20 cars, but they're miserable and they do drugs, and they're, so then you don't want that kind of success, because that doesn't mean anything.
Mm.
So I think success is balance. I think recognition from a large audience is a good way to call it success, because when you do something that you think is good deep in your heart, that you love, and when you look at it, you're proud, and then you realize that other people likes it too, and that brings you income as well, you can feed your family and be happy. That's it. I think that's success enough. And of course there's this, we're in a society when you always more, and like when I finished the show and I sold this painting for $500,000, a lot of people came to me like, next time I hope it's 1 million, right? And you're like, sure. But what do we even think about that? And it's like, that just happened, it's insane. And I'm not thinking, oh, I hope, but that's what people do, and somehow it's good. You want to always push further, that's human
Yeah.
nature. You break the record of the sprint, next sprint you will be faster. But it's, to me, I don't think of, my next show, I hope I'm going to sell me a painting for $1 million. That's not what I think. I hope next show I have better paintings, because that's
Ah,
my problem.
yeah.
That's my problem. And that's
Yeah.
it. Like, the money that's going to go through it, I don't care.
Yeah.
That's a secondary problem. It comes after. But the number one problem is the quality of the work. And to me, it's always, how do I beat myself? That's
Mm.
it.
Mhm.
And so that's going to be my work, is like, how do I create better image? How do I like create things that are better?
I love that. It's really balancing the outward with the inward. And so, that's something that I've been really exploring recently with myself, asking myself, like, what do I want? What are my goals and dreams and aspirations? What is that version of success that I've been chasing? And I've come to realize that it's actually an internal feeling of how you carry yourself through the day. It's not necessarily what, it's who. And as soon as I twigged on that, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just going to show up today and do my best. And then when I put my head on the pillow at the end, I know that I loved my people. Like I really, and I had some moments there that were just key where I was present. That was such a thing because I was, speaking of anxiety, man, like I was that anxious kind of hamster on the wheel going, gotta go, gotta go, gotta get this done, gotta get this done, organize this, do this, send it there. Oh, what if that doesn't work? What, and just, it really is a sort of a fear in a way that starts eating you from the inside. But as soon as I'm like, no, no, I'm just going to show up, I'm going to focus on one thing at a time, do my very best, be present. And then and I love what you said as well. It's like, don't focus on that money part. Don't focus like, hey, if it happens, look, it probably will happen. But if you're chasing it, it seems like it'll almost just lose its luster in a way. It's
It's not
not,
working. I mean,
yeah.
again, as an artist, the everybody, of course, everybody's always looking for making a success, making money. It's the human nature as well. It's normal, but it can't be what you're after, because that is definitely not the right path.
Mm.
And if you're an artist, and there's a path, there's a dirt road, and it cuts in three. So there's one with an arrow that says money, the other one with an arrow says work, and one was like quality. You have to choose where you go. Definitely don't go to the money route, because it's not gonna lead you to money. You just fall in a hole. So I think you have to take the route of quality work, then go through it. And then I'm sure at some point you're gonna meet the route of the money. It's because it's normal. When it's good and everything flows and it's natural, money comes and it's good. But again, it's not a finality. And, it's I was telling my wife, like, we just bought this house, and to me, almost that was the goal of my whole life, to like own a house with no debt, no rent. It's just, that was it. And I told her, I was like, if from now on everything stops, like I don't, sell paintings anymore, and I have to like, I don't care, because we have a roof forever. And that was it. That's like, I somehow deep inside accomplished something that was important for me to like,
Yeah.
own something. And so that's all. That's my vision of, yeah, I'm happy. I made it somehow. I bought a house. Maybe people would laugh at that, but to me, it's very important, because, it means shelter for family. No matter what's happening, we have a roof, and that's it. So yeah.
Yeah, man. That's incredible. Yeah. And I've got a similar goal as well. It's important. I don't think it's a little thing at all. That's how you love your people, is provide that for them.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Man, listen, you inspire the heck out of me, bro. You really do. You show me, and I know you show thousands of other people, what's possible when you've got your head straight and you're really focused on the right things. You have a subject that you're passionate about, and you don't miss. And I'm just, yeah, I look at your work, your profile on social media, and I was just there as I was watching that unfold just through what you were sharing with us on the socials, just going, yes, man, that's so cool. Because for me personally, you set that bar so high, it's that point on the horizon, and I'm like looking at it going, all right, I actually need to dream a bit bigger, and then lock in and focus on the day. But it's just incredible. So, bro, thank you for being you. Thanks. Keep doing what you're doing. It's awesome. Um, but listen, thank you so much for spending this time with me here. Thank you so much for being on the Creative Endeavor.
Well, thank you so much for, yeah, putting all that together, and keep, bringing the messages out for everybody. So cool. And say hi to all your students for me.
I will. Well, thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Creative Endeavor podcast, and a huge shout out and thank you to Mark Maggiori for joining me. If you're not already following him on Instagram or on his website, make sure you do so. You'll find links in the description that accompanies this podcast on whatever audio platform you're listening on. Follow his work, and I know you're going to be just as inspired as I am. Now, if you could do me a huge favor and leave me a rating or review on whatever audio platform you're listening on, that would be amazing. It will help push this show out to more people. And if you want to come back for more, make sure you're following this show. There's also a video version that I put out on my YouTube channel. Simply search my name, Andrew Tischler, on YouTube, and pull this episode up. And also, if you can, anywhere you're listening or watching, leave me a comment and let me know what were some of the takeaways, something that you got from this conversation. Now, I've got plenty more episodes to share with you and lots more inspiring artists to talk to, so don't go anywhere. Thanks so much for being here, and I'll see you again in another episode of The Creative Endeavor.